Hello there guys, what is going on? Son of Chelsea back here again for another edition of Let's Talk Chelsea. Hope you're doing well and keeping safe on this Thursday. Transfer talk again. Frenkie De Jong, what's going to happen with the Barcelona midfielder in the coming hours? I mean, it's kind of been reported today that, in particular today, or the next couple of days are going to be quite key for his future. What is going to happen? Are we finally going to get a resolution? I'm sure Man United fans are probably as tired because, of course, it's been sort of their big target of the summer. And Chelsea trying to go in there and get a deal done. But does the player actually want to move? And, of course, the mess of Barca's finances and does that stand in the way of Chelsea doing a deal despite maybe agreeing a fee with Barcelona? We'll get into that. I also want to get into a little bit on Wesley Fofana with Brendan Rodgers, some more comments, and also Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang. I haven't spoken about him on the channel so far because there's obviously been a lot of stories again linking him with Chelsea and just kind of that move and again like the feeling of Chelsea needing a centre forward. Aubameyang, his relationship with Tuchel, would it be a good move? Is it a bad move for a player of his age and maybe that fallout at Arsenal? We'll get into that today. Make sure, guys, if you haven't already, hit that like button because it helps new people find the channel, and also subscribe and hit that notification bell so you don't miss any of the uploads on the channel. Frenkie De Jong. So let me give you my opinions on De Jong because I have spoken about it on the channel, more just kind of reacting to the news and just kind of thinking about this deal and what it could mean for Chelsea if it happens. If Frenkie De Jong, despite his willingness to remain in Barca, he kind of has to go, or at least he feels like that's the best option for his career, and he chooses Chelsea, which looks out of the options available to him. If he does decide to leave Barca, you know, that apparently is more favourable to him. And I can absolutely understand the excitement over him and what he could become at Chelsea as a midfielder. But I also understand the criticism and kind of buy into it that as a profile, he's not that radically different to what we already have. Aesthetically very pleasing, technically good on the ball, quite comfortable in possession. You could maybe question his physicality, and particularly for years now, what have we been saying about the central midfield? What does it lack? And I don't think Frenkie De Jong fits that. But at the same time, I think a lot of us as well have criticised the lack of creativity in this team, particularly, and productivity from central midfield. Could Frenkie De Jong offer that? And I think it's a balancing act with a lot of signings, and it's obviously always the case, but how Tuchel would use that player, I'm really fascinated to see, because we know he can play that deeper position. I mean, that's kind of one of the reasons I think Ten Hag wants him for Man United. But particularly with the way our double six works at the current moment and what De Jong can do at his best, of course you want him starting at a deeper position, but maybe having that license to move forward as a ball carrier, as a progressive player, someone who can link and as I say, get involved a bit more rather than being quite stationary. And at the moment you feel like his game could be a little bit limited if he's just kind of asked to play one of the sixes like Kante, Jorginho, Kovacic have, just recycling the ball. I think maybe we'd lose some of that inspiration. But in terms of the deal and how much it would cost, I mean, 70 million, it would be a statement. It absolutely would. There would kind of be a bit of bragging rights. But, beating out Man United for a player, as funny as it would be, given this has been their kind of number one target, it's not a reason to do a deal, especially when you're paying 70 million for someone. It's a big commitment. There is a case, just a reality of Chelsea needing to find a succession plan to their central midfield with N'Golo Kante and Jorginho, both of their contract situations, which it's kind of gone under the radar because of course we've had so much to speak about this summer, but it was one of those big things last season of what we're going to do with that midfield, and it looks like, again, Declan Rice, we're going to have to wait another year potentially to bring him in. I don't think De Jong means that we're never signing Declan Rice. I don't think that at all, because you've got to think that Jorginho and Kante could still leave next summer, other players could leave and things could open up. I just feel with De Jong, let's get into sort of the details of what's being said at the moment. It does feel like big hours, key hours ahead in terms of his future. Ben Jacobs here this morning tweeting about how Barcelona have reiterated to De Jong that he must take a 50% pay cut or leave. They expect decision imminently. They want it today. Threat of legal action against current deal hasn't moved further yet. as reported, Chelsea optimistic of an €80 million deal, but waiting on Frenkie De Jong decision. Barca billing this as a straight choice between De Jong taking a pay cut or leaving, although Laporta has said he'll respect De Jong's current deal. Barca maintain they're prepared to challenge in a court, which is just ridiculous when we think about this in Barca's finances currently. Sources say legal action is a last resort, but more than an empty threat. Chelsea pushing on the player side. They don't want this to drag out. Barcelona on the same page. It's clear De Jong would love to somehow stay, as he said consistently, but without a pay cut, and he's still reluctant. A move away remains more likely. I mean, we've seen him being abused out and about in Barcelona. I mean, just ridiculous behaviour, and it's sad to see this situation happening to a number of players. You know how much of a mess it is, how much Barca are getting their way. In terms of making these players look like the villains in this situation. It's just absolutely absurd. And I've said before, it would be quite funny if De Jong just stuck around and said, because I don't think De Jong coming or going breaks this window for me personally. Like I just got to be honest. I think Fofana is more of an influential player, kind of just in what we need in central defence. But if you do disagree with me, let me know in the comments below. So yeah, we'll see. Hopefully this doesn't drag on and on and on. I mean, because it would be a little bit boring, and the mess involved, and Chelsea quite clearly are serious about the player. And if Chelsea are serious about a player this summer, we know Thomas Tuchel was serious about the player. And again, you'd hope he'd have a plan to integrate him into that midfield and maybe add something that we haven't had for quite a while. Let me know your opinions on De Jong and this whole situation in the comments below. Fofana, just a tweet here from Adam Newson going off some Brendan Rodgers quotes. Of course, Brendan Rodgers has been speaking about Fofana. Chelsea going in with bids. Brendan Rodgers about a week ago was very adamant that he's not for sale, and there was no business being done with him, but he has kind of publicly admitted now that there are a few offers, and this is what he had to say today. There were 2 bids, but nowhere near what the club would consider. We're not looking to sell. Naturally, if there's interest from other clubs, that is looked at by the club. And Adam Newson goes on to say, for what it's worth, last week Rodgers stated that Fofana was not for sale, so his wording has changed a little. Chelsea still expected to return with a third bid for Fofana. Will that be the bid that basically gets Chelsea over the line? I think I've always said that they're going to hold out for 85 million at least for Fofana, and it's understandable why, given how important he is, given where we are in the window, and I think they have Chelsea in a good place for them, in negotiations this summer. So will Chelsea go there? I think they will, and we hope a deal can be done for Fofana, because it's quite clear on the player side he is very open to the move. But let's get into the last thing today. Pierre-Emerick, Aubameyang, of course, they have kind of coupled obviously together De Jong and Aubameyang. Sky had a report that Chelsea were going for both from Barcelona, but Matt Law was reporting about it earlier in the week, and Chelsea wanting to get the deal done. And Nick Purwell was sort of referencing, of course, Aubameyang and Tuchel's previous relationship at Borussia Dortmund, and Tuchel very much feeling like something could be done at Chelsea to get the striker into good form. And Fabrizio Romano today was tweeting that Barcelona have scheduled a new round of talks on Thursday for both Aubameyang and Memphis Depay deals. Chelsea are discussing on Oberside, waiting for bid. Depay in talks for a contract termination, and Juve pushing for a 2-year deal. Barca want to keep one of them. I've said Depay maybe out of the two. I think the reason I like Depay a little bit more is because Tuchel constantly talks about a fluid front three, and I just think Depay maybe offers what Tuchel would need as a forward rather than a traditional centre forward, because I think he struggled to get the best out of those types. And we reference back, what happened with Lukaku. Of course, Aubameyang is a very, very different profile. It would be quite weird to see Aubameyang play for Chelsea, particularly when he moved over to Barcelona. It kind of felt like an endpoint for him in the Premier League at his age. Is it a little bit like an emergency type deal where Chelsea are just going for anyone? But that doesn't mean that because he's an aging striker, we can't get some value out of him in this situation. We've seen Olivier Giroud coming from Arsenal and doing Chelsea a very good job. I think underrated probably Giroud in his time at Chelsea and scoring goals consistently. And of course, there is a previous working relationship with these two. So it's very easy to see why this could happen, or very easy to see why Tuchel would want Aubameyang. And Aubameyang, you've got to look at his goal scoring record in the Premier League. What is it, like 68 goals, something like that? He scored a lot of goals for Arsenal, and even though it fell out pretty toxically, I think, at Arsenal with Mikel Arteta, which I'm sure like a lot of people are interested in with the All or Nothing series right now, there is that character side of it, which again, You reference Lukaku culturally. There are concerns about that, right? And we've seen, I think, Aubameyang as well in the past has maybe turned up late for some big games for Arsenal. It's not the things you want to be hearing about a player, particularly in a summer where Chelsea are maybe getting rid of some characters who have kind of acted in that fashion before. And particularly if you're bringing in a player of Aubameyang's age and profile, this is a senior figure in the dressing room who would become as Chelsea and would be playing a lot of minutes. What is the knock-on effect of where Kai Havertz plays? What is the knock-on effect of where Armando Broja sits? Because currently it looks like Broja has a very clear line forward. I mean, a lot of people inside and out of Chelsea think we need a striker. And again, would Aubameyang be someone that excites you? I could see profile-wise, it's not as much of a red flag as Cristiano Ronaldo would have been. I think Aubameyang, obviously, as I say, that previous connection, we have seen him play off the left. He's still got that speed about him. He's kept on scoring whilst playing for Barcelona. That connection with Ousmane Dembele, I think, was quite interesting at the back end of last season. So there are things that make Aubameyang someone that I'm sure people would like to see. But I think there are cultural things, character things that are slight red flags. But Chelsea, with Werner leaving now, with Lukaku gone, the idea that Hudson-Odoi could be leaving as well, the future of Ziyech still up in the air, just numbers wise, and Chelsea looking again for that opportunity to sign someone in attack who could strengthen that area and maybe add the goals that we lack, because it did look pretty toothless against Everton. And if there's that concern, Aubameyang could be the guy. But Barca, and it's once again a bit like De Jong, with Barcelona involved, it's a complete mess. There's a lot of moving doors and factors, and the fact that he only moved to that club in January, it'd be quite strange he's leaving already. But that's the situation Barcelona find themselves in. And as I say, Depay, maybe something could open up there, and maybe something could open up in other ways in the market for Chelsea and a potential attacker. I'd more prefer an attacker, like a versatile attacker, just personally for me, for where I think Tuchel could be taking this team, rather than a set number 9 personally, because I just think, again, you look at the previous problems, that fluidity, the options it gives Tuchel. Of course, productivity is a massive concern, but we are only one game into the season, and you want to see how it develops in the coming weeks. Those are my thoughts on De Jong, Fofana, and Aubameyang. We will see how this plays out. I think De Jong and Fofana, particularly De Jong, again, it'd be quite refreshing if we get some clarity over the situation. Is it moving forward? Is it not? Chelsea can then move forward to other targets if they want to. And for Fofana, I think we're at a very similar place. If Chelsea pay the money, I think a deal can absolutely be done, because Leicester have done this in recent years. But whether Chelsea go up to there is going to be the big question. So those are my thoughts. Let me know yours, as always, guys, in the comments below. Thank you guys so much for taking the time to watch this video. Hit that subscribe button, hit that notification bell, follow me on Twitter at SonOfChelsea, and I'll see you again very soon. All the best.